Why do you think that is?
Because he's a coward. He doesn't lead from the front. You know, I mean, he obviously feared they might lose, therefore he didn't come. I knocked on doors for 8 hours today, and I would have been here in this hall with our candidate, regardless whether...
Nigel Farage was asked a simple question about Keir Starmer after the surprising victory of Reform UK in the recent by-election. What followed was an unexpected and fierce response that shocked everyone. There were no rehearsed lines, no filters, just a raw and unfiltered attack on Starmer's leadership. Farage didn't just give a typical answer. He dismantled Starmer in a way that left everyone stunned. The usual calm and calculated Farage was gone, replaced by an angry man who had clearly been waiting for the right moment to speak his mind. This wasn't just a political critique. It was a full-on assault on Starmer's credibility, and it left the media and his aides frozen in disbelief.
Council and mayoral election results are starting to come in across Britain as Nigel Farage's Reform UK party attempts to position itself as the country's major Conservative party. Now, the party is building on its shock UK general election swing last year, where it gained 5 seats. Early results suggest it could challenge the status quo and position itself as the major challenger to Labor going forward into
The context of this moment was the stunning by-election win in Runcorn and Helsby by Reform UK, a victory that shook the political establishment. This was not just an ordinary upset. Runcorn, once a Labour stronghold with a huge majority of nearly 15,000 votes, had now swung to Reform UK by a margin of just 6 votes. This dramatic shift wasn't about stealing votes from the Tories. It was about the working class rejecting the Labour Party, frustrated by its dishonesty, its betrayals, and its leadership that many felt was robotic and out of touch. Farage used this opportunity to send a direct message to Starmer and the Labour Party. He wasn't just talking about political victory. He was contrasting Reform UK's authenticity with what he implied was Labour's political deceit. Starmer's Labour, according to Farage, was full of polished politicians who were disconnected from the reality of working-class people. Farage praised candidates with real-life experience, a subtle but direct jab at Starmer, who had spent his career in the Westminster bubble, far removed from the lives of ordinary people. For Farage, this was more than just a campaign speech. It was a class war disguised as political commentary. Farage didn't stop at simply calling out Starmer for being out of touch. He hit him where it hurt the most on the issue of leadership. Farage knows that Labour's rise to power was largely driven by frustration with the Tories, and he was quick to point out the emptiness that lay beneath Starmer's leadership. He boldly challenged Starmer to prove that he could deliver real change, knowing full well that Starmer's leadership had shown little in terms of concrete action. Farage saw this as a setup for failure, daring Starmer to deliver on the promises he had made, knowing deep down that he wouldn't. Then, the moment came that would forever haunt Starmer. When asked why Starmer had been absent from the by-election, Farage wasted no time in answering. With one word, he shattered Starmer's image: coward. It wasn't just a harsh label.
Race in Lincolnshire, Durham, Lincolnshire, Lancashire, Staffordshire, Derbyshire, some of the councils you've won. Is it beyond what you thought you could do today?
Way beyond. I knew we'd do well today. I mean, I've seen the party grow. I've seen the calibre of people improve. We professionalise the way we operate, everything from our literature to data gathering. But frankly, what we're achieving in terms of council seat numbers, what has happened here in County Durham, beyond my wildest dreams. Okay. Just goes to show people are ready for real change.
It was a precise and calculated hit on the heart of Starmer's leadership. Farage exposed Starmer's fear of losing, which had led him to avoid even showing up to campaign. While Farage was on the ground, knocking on doors for hours and standing by his candidate, Starmer had chosen to stay away. For Farage, this was more than just a failure of leadership. It was political cowardice in its purest form. In contrast to Farage's willingness to engage with the public, Starmer hid from it, and Farage made it clear that this was not what true leadership looked like. But Farage didn't stop there. He went on to attack Starmer's entire political persona. He painted Starmer as someone who was cautious to the point of paralysis, a man so afraid of making a mistake.
We're positive people, we're different people, and you know, our candidate that has won here is somebody that 30 years ago, Parliament was full of people like her, who'd had successful careers, as she's had in business, in politics, in the judiciary, and now there are very few of them. So I think what we're doing is we're putting candidates up, getting people elected with real life experience, and that's what voters want.
That he had become a puppet of carefully crafted talking points and rehearsed lines. Farage made the point that while Starmer might be seen as a decent man, decency alone was not enough in politics. In fact, without courage, decency was nothing more than a shield to hide behind. This was a public dismantling of Starmer's character and leadership. Farage didn't just call him cautious, he called him out for being weak, for not standing for anything meaningful, and for offering no clear direction. In a country desperate for bold leadership,
last summer, people booted the Tories out wanting change. Labour, now people are cross with them. You're promising change, but now you're going to have to deliver. Are you confident you're going to be able to do that?
Well, we couldn't do worse than the previous lot in running county councils. We will, where we win county councils, send in the auditors, examine long-term contracts, end crazy expenditure on consultants, on part-time workers, county councils fighting climate change, pursuing DEI, buying ergonomic chairs for their staff. No. As and where we win.
Farage argued, Starmer had nothing to offer but empty words and vague promises. When Starmer responded to his defeat, his comments only made things worse. He admitted that the working class was unhappy, but his response was deeply revealing. He said that he needed to double down and focus more on delivering for the working class. This was a moment that exposed how out of touch Starmer was. To admit that he only now realized how unhappy the working class was showed just how little he understood the people he was supposed to lead. It was a reminder of the gap between the Labour leadership and the struggles of ordinary people, a gap that was only growing wider.
So just finally, you were here yesterday. Labour have thrown everything at this. Pretty much everybody has been up here, but not the Prime Minister. Why do you think that is?
Because he's a coward. He doesn't lead from the front. You know, I mean, he obviously feared they might lose, therefore he didn't come. I knocked on doors for 8 hours today, and I would have been here in this hall with our candidate, regardless whether we'd won or lost by 6 votes. And somehow with Keir Starmer, who, by the way, is a perfectly decent human being, but somehow with Keir Starmer, it's caution, 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 and no one really knows quite what he actually believes.
This was not a leader who had his finger on the pulse of the nation. This was a leader who was trying to catch up with reality, but always a few steps behind. Farage, in contrast, didn't just point out the flaws in Starmer's leadership. He destroyed the myth of Starmer's authority. In one sharp statement, the message was clear. Starmer was losing credibility, and with it, his chances of ever being seen as a true leader. Farage wasn't just offering an opinion, he was delivering a verdict on Starmer's leadership, and it was damning. Starmer, according to Farage, was the epitome of political cowardice.
Parties, they're not the 2 main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country. What we've done here in Runcorn and Helsby is made history tonight, overturning that a massive Labour majority, and I think it's a sign that people are fed up with both, but they feel let down by the Tories, let down by Labour, and the Labour have only been in for 10 months, but they're ready for change, and we are going to provide that party of hope.
A man who lacked the backbone to make bold decisions and who didn't even know what he stood for. Farage exposed Starmer as a puppet of the political establishment, someone who didn't lead with conviction or vision, but with carefully crafted speeches and a desire not to offend anyone. This wasn't leadership, it was a fade. And then, Farage took it one step further. He reminded voters of the real issues facing working-class communities. People were struggling with high taxes, ignored by Westminster, while their communities were being overwhelmed by the strain of immigration.
So in Runcorn, you lost one of your safest seats by just 6 votes. Surely this is a sign that voters aren't convinced by what this government's offering.
You know, many Prime Ministers respond to this by saying oppositions always do well in these sorts of by-elections, or it was very close, and it was very close. All of that is perfectly true. But my response is to say, I get it. We were elected into government at the general election last year to deliver change. We've started that work. Waiting lists are coming down, wages are going up, interest rates are down. That's all good for working people. But the message I take out of these results is that we need to go further and faster with change. People need to see and feel that change. That chimes with what I've been saying for a number of weeks. We're going to double down on that now, deliver the change that people...
Starmer, according to Farage, had nothing to say about these pressing issues. Instead, he hid behind platitudes and avoided speaking out on matters of national responsibility, fairness, and patriotism. Labour, under Starmer, had become the party of managed decline, too afraid to speak the truth, obsessed with political optics, and terrified of offending anyone. Farage's message was clear. Starmer's Labour Party was a party of inaction, a party that no longer represented the interests of ordinary people. Farage didn't just question Starmer's ability to lead, he shattered the illusion of his authority. The Labour Party, under Starmer's leadership, had become a hollow shell, offering no real direction or inspiration. Farage made it clear that this wasn't a party that could lead the country. Instead, it was a party in decline, more concerned with appearances than with tackling the real problems facing the nation. As Reform UK celebrated their victory.
Nigel Farage, what's your message to Sir Keir Starmer this morning?
That people put trust in you, that is eroded, albeit almost eradicated in a very short space of time. It'd be nice to know who he really is, wouldn't it? What does he actually believe in? It seems that whatever he writes for him on a piece of paper, he reads out. There's no conviction in this Labour Party, but crucially, the things that switched a lot of old Labour voters to us in this constituency, number one, working people. They have alarms that go off in the morning, they cross the bridge and work in Merseyside. Mostly, the taxes they pay are going up and they wonder why they're doing it. Secondly, a feeling that somehow Labour is not a patriotic party. And thirdly, there are 750 young men who've crossed the English Channel living in this constituency at the expense of hard-working taxpayers, causing great alarm in many streets. Dover may be a long way away. Its influence on this by-election was enormous.
Mr Farage, your campaign...
You're putting it on one issue. Which issue won it?
I think the whole question of fairness. And if you're paying loads of tax and you're seeing in your street a house being rented and 10 young men who've crossed the channel living there, you think this is wrong. And it's
Hopes were high that the party could continue to build on this momentum. With Farage at the helm, there was talk of the possibility of a new political force rising in Britain. The question on many minds was whether Farage could turn his party's success into something even bigger, potentially challenging Labour and the Tories for control of the country. In the aftermath of this political showdown, the public was left to reflect on Farage's words and the message they conveyed about Starmer's leadership. Was Farage right? Was Starmer truly a coward, disconnected from the people he claimed to represent? Could he ever be trusted to lead the country? Or was he just another politician, more interested in preserving his position than in actually making a difference? The comments section was flooded with opinions, with many agreeing with Farage that Starmer was not fit to be Prime Minister. Some felt that Starmer had shown his true colors, that he cared more about holding on to power than about standing up for the people who had once supported him. Others argued that Farage's attack was unfair.
Also, a general feeling of cost of living going up, no public facilities in this constituency. So some of my priorities will be to look at that. There's no leisure centre here for people. Families have to go over the bridge to Widnes. There's no cinema, again, over the bridge to Widnes, which they then have to pay for, of course, with the bridge tolls. So there's a lot of work to do here. It's long overdue that someone stood up for the people here of Runcorn and Helsby and made some investment, made some changes, regeneration of the town centre. There's so much to do.
And finally, Reform obviously haven't had any real power as yet. That might begin to change now. Are you confident they're going to be able to deliver?
Absolutely. Now we've got 4 years before the general election. I totally believe that Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister.
Pointing out that Starmer had inherited a difficult situation and was trying to move Labour forward in a changing political landscape. Whether or not you agree with Farage's assessment, one thing is clear: the political landscape in the UK is shifting, and Reform UK is positioning itself as a major challenger to the status quo. Whether they can maintain their momentum and take advantage of the growing dissatisfaction with the major parties remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure, Farage's words have left a lasting impact on Starmer and the Labour Party, and the battle for Britain's political future is far from over.